Hey everyone, Justin Giddings here, day 11 of 30 crowdfunding training videos in 30 days. And today we wrap up our video series within a series on Kickstarter versus Indiegogo versus Seed&Spark. Which platform should you choose? Let me start by saying, notice how I didn't list GoFundMe or any of the other half dozen platforms out there. A lot of the techniques that I'm talking about will totally apply to those platforms, but the reason I don't bring them up simply is because as of now, they are not good for filmmakers. They are not good for creatives. They are not kind of good for really anybody trying to do a film campaign. If I have clients who insist on doing them, I've had one or two. Sure, they've been successful, but so much of what we had to do to be successful was work against the platform. You don't want to be working against your platform. You want your platform working for you. So now we're going to talk about my favorite platform, which is Seed&Spark. So let's get into the basics. So the first piece about it is that Seed&Spark is a hybrid funding model. You have to reach at least 80% funding. Sort of the ideology behind that is like, okay, if you ask for 40K, but you get whatever is 80% of that, 32K, yay, great, fabulous. You can probably adjust accordingly because this project was put together by filmmakers. This platform was put together by filmmakers. So they figure, okay, if you can at least get 80% of your funding, you can probably deliver pretty close to what your backers expect. Their official platform fee is 5%. However, they allow backers to tip upon checkout that 5% fee. So if somebody's giving you 20 bucks and then on checkout it says, hey, for an extra dollar, you cover their 5% fee, that's a really easy thing for people to say yes to. Most of your backers are going to be in that $20 to $100 range. And so again, it's easy for them to throw an extra $1 or $5 in. And so most of my clients' actual fees end up being somewhere in the 1% to 2% range, which is a pretty big number, especially if we start talking about numbers in that 40, 50 plus range. The processing fee is really simple. It's 2.9% plus a 30 cent charge, I guess, from the merchant processor. So it's always going to be that same amount. And then it has the highest success rate. If you choose to go and do some research on this, there's actually some people who've done some analytics behind Seed&Spark's claim that they have a 73% success rate. In fact, actually, the last time I had a sit-down meeting with one of the execs there, apparently the number last year was as high as 78%, somewhere in that range. Okay, so super high success rate. The caveat is that their bread and butter, most of their campaigns are averaging around $12,000. $10,000 to $20,000. This will play into one of the cons about this platform in here that I'll get into here in a second. But long story short, the success rate is extremely high compared to, similarly, I want to say Kickstarter somewhere in the 30% range. Indiegogo's in the teens, so it's definitely much better success rate for those smaller numbers. All right. Okay, so let's talk about the pros. First pro is that it is, like I said, the highest success rate for film and television. And it also has strategic partnerships for distribution. For one, they are a distribution channel themselves, and they will pull from successful campaigns that have gone on to do awesome things and actually distribute their films. And there's really cool revenue share. Obviously, it's a small streaming service, but they do pay what you can pricing. There is a space in there for your film to have some sort of ground roots distribution through the platform itself. They also have these things called rallies, where every once in a while a celebrity or a company will come in and they'll host a certain period where you can launch connected to a theme. So they do hometown heroes, where it's films that are connected to your hometown, and they're ultra low budget, and Mark Duplass comes in and talks there. They'll do a horror rally around Halloween and stuff. So if you could time it right, although they tend to start on the first of the month, which, as you know by now, I'm not a huge fan of for statistical and analytical reasons. Nonetheless, connecting yourself to a rally, the winners of those rallies, the people who raise the most and the people who get the most followers. So there's two different categories. They get to meet people like Mark Duplass, who will executive produce your project. So it's a really cool, this is an indie film platform. Their customer service is ridiculously awesome. They are small, they're number 3, and so they work their butts off to be available. You can tweet at the CEO, Emily Best, on Twitter. She's probably going to hate me for saying that. Now she'll get a bunch of requests, but like their customer service email, start there, is awesome. And they just really there's robust support and robust training. They even have a series of training videos within the site as well. I don't necessarily agree with all the stuff there, but I'm also just, I'm one path. I'm a path that's done this 150 times, and there's a lot of value in sort of like having tested these things over and over and over again. But that doesn't mean I'm right or that I'm always right. And sometimes they teach things that I think for some people is really, really good. For example, I don't think 30%, you need to launch with 30% in the bank ready to go and having already get 30% of your funds already pre-committed. I think that's campaigning before the campaign. I think it's exhausting for people. There's lots of reasons I'm not a huge fan of it, but I've actually had clients do that very, very successfully. Seed&Spark teaches that, and it works for a lot of people. So it's sort of like, if you want to do that job, great. There's some videos and training there that will help you do that. They also accept in-kind services and specific items and donations and even loans in lieu of funds. This gets a little bit complicated. For one, a very small percentage of the people who come along are going to donate a camera package or donate something like that. So a lot of people view that as great, maybe somebody will just give us a thing, and it very, very rarely happens. But I do know of some situations where like if somebody commits like officially in writing that they're going to give a certain amount of money, they might go in and reflect that on the ticker. So I don't want to speak too much of this and put them in a box where they, Justin Giddings said that you could do this thing, but it's worth an email to support if you've got maybe some creative ideas on how to move the ticker, if you've got funds or in-kind services or equipment coming in a different direction. Of course, direct engagement with backers, they give you the email just like Indiegogo does. So one of the big pros over Kickstarter, actually, because for me, right, it's really sort of Kickstarter versus Seed&Spark, because if you remember, I don't really recommend Indiegogo, at least as of now. One of the big pros over Kickstarter is that you do get your backers' email information as soon as they contribute, so you can do the kind of personalized follow-up that will keep them retained, their pledge, and they can increase their pledge down the road, and kind of all that stuff that they could do on Kickstarter, but you're handicapped by not having their email. They also allow for nonprofits and fiscal sponsorship. So they've got partnerships there that you can connect with. They have this thing called Filmmaker Rewards. So if you I don't know, Google Seed&Spark Filmmaker Rewards, if you get a certain number of followers, which is people who've essentially liked your campaign page, even whether or not they've given money. If they give you money, they're automatically a follower, but they can also follow. People could follow and not give you money. If you get certain tiers, you start getting stuff like waivers to festivals, free or discounted software, even physical items like G drives, kind of for many people, sort of the standard hard drive, right? So like actual physical items. And when you count all this up, it adds up quite a bit, like several thousand, even at the lowest tier. And I think when you get 1,000 backers, it's like over $10,000 worth of services and coupons and discounts and, special access for festivals and that kind of stuff. Like Google Seed&Spark Filmmaker Rewards, and you'll see the full list, and they'll break down the tiers, but it's very cool. They also do a little bit of internal funding. So the money that they take from their streaming service, their distribution, a portion of that they set aside, and they call this the seed fund. And every once in a while, they'll pour some of those funds into a campaign that really reflects sort of their ethos and their values. I don't know what that secret sauce is in terms of what makes them select certain things, but it's probably some combination of, what they say is, again, connecting to their values, and they're very, very sort of diversity minded. That's another big pro that I don't even have listed on my little list of pros, which is that like they have an inclusion statement, I think it's called, where every single campaign has to talk about how they are working to include more diverse voices within their project. It's really, really important to them. And so that's something, I'm sure we can all really kind of get behind. And then I mentioned how backers can cover the platform fee. That's huge. I mean, let me see if I can do math real quick. So 5% of 40K would be $2,000. So even if that got cut in half, you've just saved $1,000, maybe $1,200, $1,500 by people just kind of tipping, and that builds up over time and really reduces a significant percentage because it's billed as a percentage. It's, hey, do you want to cover this 5% fee? So when enough people do it, the percentages really come out. And they've got finally they've got decent analytics and tracking. They still don't have Facebook Pixel integration. Pretty sure they have Google Analytics integration, but they do have their own internal analytics, so you can see like how many visitors are coming in. They have a really cool graph that shows you like the trajectory of most campaigns, and so it can be really helpful to kind of be like, oh, you know, we're where we should be or not, and then you can figure out what you got to do to fix. So, you know, I love this company. They are film centric. They are people centric. They are good people working very, very hard in a robust way. Not that, you know, again, Kickstarter, I love that team as well. They're really, really great. Seed&Spark is I think a good choice for a lot of people. But let's talk about the con. So the big con is the lowest name recognition. Nobody knows what Seed&Spark is, even many filmmakers. This has changed over the last few years. This used to be like a major issue. Now people, they've done a good job of branding. People, at least within the industry, sort of recognize Seed&Spark. But it can be difficult for larger campaigns in terms of lowest name, you know, just by having that lowest name recognition. Additionally, another reason why it's kind of hard for larger campaigns is the platform themselves are very wary of it. So one of the things that they do, and this might be a pro or a con depending on your view of it, when you go to submit your campaign page, they take 2 or 3 business days to give you actual notes, and they expect you to incorporate those notes, and then you submit for final approval. So heads up, you need like 5 to 7 business days to get actually approved. You can make your edits during that time as well, but like get that process going. But the reason why it can be difficult then for larger campaigns, when you get these notes, a lot of my clients, I mean, most of my clients are going for minimally 20K or 30K. And so they'll get a response. It's like, yo, you're asking for a lot of money. You know, most of the platforms are living in that 10,000 range for most filmmakers, which is true. You know, we're living in that $12,000 to $15,000 range for us. So if you're going to go for that bigger number, you better have your stuff together. And they kind of want like, you know, for them, having a high retention or a high success rate is really valuable too. So you're going to have a conversation with them that says, I'm working with Justin Giddings, the Kickstarter guy, or of Greenlight yourself. They should recognize my name. At least everybody now who's there as of this recording would recognize that. And, you know, that's frankly usually enough to kind of be like, oh, okay, cool. So you've got, you know what you're getting into. That's their big fear, because most people don't, right? So if you go all the way back to core component number 1, most filmmakers don't know the kind of numbers that they need to reach. So Seed&Spark, this is the moment where they tell them, yo, you're going for a big number. I don't think you understand how big that number is. Let's break that down. And so you just need to be able to reply and go, oh, no, I do. And then finally, there might be, because there's not a lot of name recognition, maybe some confusion about the funding model. It's not a exact like fixed funding model where you have to hit 100%, and it's not a flexible funding model in that it's a real-time credit card transaction and that you get to keep what you raise. It's still a pledge. So I tell my clients to treat it as a fixed funding model. In fact, a lot of clients in the past have made the mistake of saying, hey, we hit 80%, we got the green light, which is what they call it. You know, you've been greenlit at 80%. And then all of a sudden you see the contributions tank because people are like, oh great, you I guess you hit your goal, right? So treat it as a fixed funding model, treat it as all or nothing, and if you fall a little short, you'll be okay. Luckily, the statistics are basically that if you hit 50%, there's something like a 94% likelihood that you're going to hit your goal. So actually, even at 30%, it's something like a 70% likelihood of hitting your goal. So most people either hit, you know, 10%, a couple $1,000 or something like that, or they hit their goal. So it's not that huge of a deal, but you know, lean into the fact that it is a fixed funding model, and you'll kind of avoid this confusion that might pop up. Don't try to explain it. Just, you know, yeah, this is fixed. We got to hit all of our money. You know, we got to hit our goal for us to get the money. People don't, you'll hear me say this a lot in some of the videos that are going to be coming down. Backers don't really want to know how the sausage is made. They just want to know that they're going to get a sausage and it's going to be delicious. So, you know, getting into the nitty gritty of how the funding model breaks down is probably not going to help, and frankly will probably hurt in that it creates confusion. There's an old marketing term, a confused mind says no. So you want to decrease that confusion. Again, I'm beating the dead horse. Just lean into the fixed funding. So that's Seed&Spark. Again, as of now, currently my favorite platform. I tend to recommend Seed&Spark for 20 to 40K, or I guess less, 40K or less campaigns. Kickstarter tends to be 40K and up, and if you're in that like 30 to 50 range, there might be some discussions about which platform has a better pro, better con, and so you might kind of break that rule a little bit. But then again, some of my biggest campaigns have been on Seed&Spark. At one point, I think I had their 4th highest campaign on there, raising about $100,000 for a project, right? So there are always outliers to this, but these are best practices. So you got to follow your gut, like take this information and then follow your gut and make that decision. Kickstarter, Indiegogo, or Seed&Spark. And then if you have any questions about any of this, please leave them in the comments below. Shoot me an email, justin@thekickstarterguy.com. Again, this whole process is for you, so don't, be shy. Like, if you've got questions, concerns, issues, fears, send them my way, and I'll be sure to answer them in a future video. Thank you for watching, and I hope this was helpful. Peace, guys.